Your attention, please. Kindly take a moment to locate your nearest fire exit. In the unlikely event of an evacuation, please follow the directions of the CCD staff and proceed directly outside. Please do not attempt to re-enter the building unless told that it is safe to do so. Thank you.
Today. Was that a bit too loud for a Monday morning, was it? Welcome to day one of Fyuz 2024, where things are going to get a little bit electric. We're thrilled to have you here in Dublin, where we're all going to go on a little bit of a journey together, okay? And we're going to look at the latest advancements in open and disaggregated technology and telco AI. My name is Lorraine, and I am going to be your handsome, charming, and ever humble host this morning. Before we go any further, I would like to take a moment and thank our sponsors, because none of this would be possible without them. Similarly, I'd really like to thank our media partners. Again, it's so important to have them alongside us. It would not be Fyuz without Wi-Fi. So I would like to take a moment and give you all a chance to take this down. The Wi-Fi network is Fyuz, and the password is Fyuz 2024 with a capital F. If you are going to post on socials, which I do encourage you to do, I would ask that you use the hashtag Fyuz24. Now, without further ado, I would like to kick things off, so please join me in welcoming TIP's chairman, Rob Sonny, and his very Irish Shamrock Socks to the stage to share some of the exciting developments that have taken place in the last year since Fyuz 2023. Rob?
So good morning.
Oh, shaky start.
It's too early, right? How many of you are jet lagging? Raise your hand. Don't be ashamed. Okay, I'm jet lagging. I'll admit it. So if you see me lie down in a minute, you know why. So first of all, thank you. Thank you for coming to listen to me. Probably the most least interesting speaker of the moment, but at least hopefully you guys will enjoy the rest of the show. So I think we just start with just welcoming you here. First, welcoming you to the wonderful city of Dublin. And you heard about my socks. I bought them yesterday. So a little good luck for the show, yes? Well, hopefully a little good luck. But yes, some people appreciate my sense of humor, which is often off. I'm told that's okay in Ireland, though, an off humor. I'm just kidding. But first of all, thank you to the city of Dublin for hosting us here. It's a beautiful city. I had the opportunity yesterday to walk around with the colleagues, and first trip to Ireland, first trip to Dublin. Again, how many of you? First trip to Ireland, first trip to Dublin. Ah, good. So we bring you the opportunity to come and see this place for the first time, and I hope you like it. I hope you like the place. I hope you like the venue. It's huge. I'm waiting for the rest of the people to come and fill up the space up there. Let's see if we fill it up. We do have a very good attendance this year, maybe the highest in the history of Fyuz. This is my third Fyuz. So last year I was here in person. The year before I was here, but only virtually. So, it was still pandemic times, and I was still new in my role in AT&T. And so I literally had just started at AT&T, and they said, hey, can you go and give a talk at Fyuz? I said, but how can I travel? It was like a week after I'd started. They said, well, don't worry, we can solve that problem. So they projected my face, which thankfully you guys are not looking at anymore, on a screen about this size. And then I got pictures from my friends saying, wow, you had a huge presence at Fyuz. I'm like, really? Oh, I was just standing there. That was really funny. But thank you to the board of TIP, as well as thank you to Christian and the leadership team for TIP itself for organizing a wonderful event. Really appreciative of all the efforts they've made to help support the speakers, support the vendors who have come to present, as well as to bring in the delegation specifically from other governments. So really appreciating seeing all the faces, seeing old friends, many of which I haven't seen for a while. continue to enjoy this day as you guys progress. So I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the show. So I think, I wanted to just be reflective of, why TIP and why now. So people ask me, okay, you take this role specifically as the chairperson of TIP, you take the role or get your company more directly involved in TIP projects themselves. But we were involved before, and so I think just from the perspective of looking in from the out of being an operator, as well as in my past life, I was on the vendor side of what can TIP really offer. So in the past, TIP was strongly supported by Meta. Meta helped create the TIP that we have today, and it was one large company driving a lot of smaller company activities in terms of trying to simplify how we were deploying telecommunications gear. What I see today is now an evolution where we see a lot of very large sponsors now involved, which I think this is a healthy transformation specifically for TIP and specifically for our industry as we transform how we will deploy RAN. As we see other parts of the network becoming disaggregated, RAN is special, it's challenging because it's so distributed that makes it more challenging, but the lessons learned from the optical side, from Wi-Fi side, from other places and other forums within TIP have really led to an opportunity for us now to move forward. So I think this just can be summarized in that now we see a huge scale activity now across the industry. And I wanted to just spend a second to think about this as we see some of the scale activities, of course, those happening just across the way there in the UK with Vodafone and with Samsung, significant builds now starting itself. We've also seen significant activities from now launched with KDDI and with Samsung as well, and then announcements specifically with O2, Telefónica, and a trial specifically with Ericsson. The US is sort of ground zero for a lot of the large-scale activities. Of course, I'll give a second to, first of all, recognize and remember that our former chairman just started this week at our direct competitor, and yes, we are a little like Coke and Pepsi, but sometimes we do agree. So thanks also to Yago. He was grateful enough to share with me his insight about where TIP is and where TIP is going. Of course, now he takes a significant role at Verizon, and of course, we'll drive them forward, I think, further in transforming them towards Open RAN and Open RAN technologies. That's what we expect. So I really do appreciate his sponsorship overall of TIP and the overall effort specifically with TIP in general. We see, of course, that the folks at Dish are also gaining scale. Thanks to some nice financing arrangements, it looks like they will continue to grow in the US and, of course, continue to build out their network, their Open RAN network itself. And, interesting, I had some opportunity to participate that in my past life as well. And, of course, I wouldn't be remiss without mentioning my employer's little role in this. And we've seen this have a significant impact on the industry itself overall, together with our partner Ericsson, a significant effort to transform the industry specifically and move to scale, specifically with Cloud RAN and with Open RAN technologies. So very happy to see this significant amount of transformation. But what we're seeing underneath is that while the large companies are driving this, the large operators are driving this, there is a gap, there is an opportunity for the disruptors, for the non-incumbents to now insert themselves specifically in the network. So no one should feel that, okay, because this is, you see headlines of large companies and large operators, but this is how it will start. And once, of course, we come with scale solutions that can easily be rolled out, then the smaller operators will be able to deploy them without the complexity, without the challenges that currently a lot of Open RAN operators are currently facing. And why do we do this? I mean, what is actually the reason? What is the underlying reason? Everyone always focuses on cost, and it's an important consideration for an operator. Something that has really been driven home to me, in particular, as I've seen, as I move from the vendor side. And the cost is not necessarily purely in the cost of gear. It's the cost in the deployment of the technologies and managing the technologies through the life cycle of the network. But what we've seen is that we've often driven our evolution of our networks based on a G boundary, based on when we go from one G to another. Of course, now we recognize that it's not happening on a 10-year cycle. And so there are technologies that are being developed that are rapidly becoming available, and we see shifts in discussions even around spectrum, for example, where previously we thought spectrum was only linked to a G and only linked to whatever the ITU said specifically would happen. In the US in particular, spectrum is a healthy topic, and we see new bands and lots of discussions even about the potential of what do we do with CBRS versus what we had before. So there's lots of opportunity there, but at the same time, cloud and cloud connectivity, the scale of allowing and being able to deploy cloud in remote locations, in distributed locations, whether it's at use an American term, central office, or MTSO, remote switching space, as well as a cell site. We now see the influence of cloud at cell sites themselves. But of course, cloud is not developing on a 10-year scale. It's not standardized by 3GPP. It is happening outside of that. Even O-RAN contributes, but at the same time, it happens perhaps even faster than O-RAN specifications, which means we need blueprint architectures, we need opportunities to certify. This gives the opportunity for an organization like TIP to contribute strongly in the direction of where we go. I would not be remiss, and no talk apparently about telecom or in general about technology this day can not include AI. So of course we have to talk about artificial intelligence. And you guys will hear over the next couple of days about the Telco AI group that is now launched in TIP. So this is a great opportunity, I think, for us to look, because these technologies will be introduced really at the grassroots level, driven by innovators, by creators, by startups, while we continue to see a strong influence also by those who have scale, who've built the infrastructure and can enable it. And the simple thing is, my boss always chides me. He's like, how many of you actually knew what generative AI was 2 years ago? Raise your hand if you knew what generative AI was 2 years ago. I see 1 hand, 2 hands, 3 hands. This is how fast our industry is transforming. And all of a sudden now we see massive investment, which is changing actually where assets are being deployed and who is deploying them. So this is the opportunity, again, for telco to leverage what's happening in the other domains, specifically to increase our efficiency in how we analyze, how we visualize, how we optimize the networks themselves. So a lot of opportunity specifically of what we do going forward on the spectrum side. So this is an exciting time for us, but we look at these unlocking technologies now being enabled through RAN transformation, through disaggregation, and finally through openness, and through network programmability. So this is really, for me, the key rub. We say, okay, we look at the network today and we say it fully disaggregates. We move from a situation where independent vendor management drives the scale of what we do to a single network management layer that can control both the scale of both baseband as well as radio, and that gives us an opportunity to introduce applications that now can touch the scale. Many of you have heard about the Network API initiative. This will help support that by having a single underlying layer that can drive the network and expose the network directly through a API itself and make it visible overall to other types of application providers, other types of providers in general to provide services for the network itself. And my favorite way of thinking about this is that finally we get to a situation with this single network management where we can think about new apps for that. Traditionally, we've often looked at how challenging it is or how difficult it is to introduce a SON application across a network, across a multi-vendor network. This is not easy. And we've seen that our ability to introduce new applications that don't just cover SON, but also cover automation, also cover monetization opportunities, and the network are not easy to do today because of the bespoke nature of the way that operators deploy tooling on top of network management layers. So moving away from that model and moving towards a model that could ultimately drive not just the RAN, but also core and transport, gives us a real opportunity to create innovation, a real opportunity to move forward in an exciting and a different way. So for us, finally, we see that there's a lot of opportunity, and we're really excited about what TIP is now doing, specifically with RIA, and expanding and looking at the opportunities to certify apps, create an environment for testing them, for sandboxing them, and for testing and validate what is almost on the top of mind of every single operator right now. And does anybody know what is on the top of mind of every single operator right now? It is not Open RAN, by the way. It is not AI. What is the number one thing that is on the top of mind for any operator on the planet? Anybody want to guess? Monetization is important. I agree with that. I was thinking about something else, though. Thank you. Security. Security is the top of mind issue. So the question is, can we actually think of apps actually helping us to secure the network? Instead of thinking them as a vulnerability, instead of thinking them as a potential challenge, and I know the O-RAN Forum has been very focused on this. we start to think about, as we move the network into this new model, how do we protect it? How do we actually ensure the integrity of data, that nobody is where they shouldn't be, but finally, if somebody's there, that we can detect that there's a threat, there's an anomaly. So there's a lot of opportunities, I think, that go beyond the classic automation, optimization, and monetization into the specific area of security. So no talk by an operator would be remiss without mentioning the keyword of security. So appreciate you guys. I hope you have a great show. Hope you enjoy all the speakers. Christian and the team have done a fantastic job of making sure that you have a great 3 days here in Dublin. So enjoy Dublin, and I'll see you around.
Wonderful. Folks, can we just get one more round of applause for Rob? It's not easy to go first, and I think he did a fantastic job. As somebody who works directly in tech startup and innovation, I could not agree more with Rob's final words either, particularly around security. But up next, we'll hear from TIP's Executive Director, Christian Toivo, who will update us on TIP's community progress in 2024 and share key focus areas for the upcoming year. Please welcome Christian to the stage.
Okay, and good morning, Dublin. Thank you, everybody, for being here as a community, and thank you, the whole Irish ecosystem, for making Fyuz 2024 a success. For me, it's the third time standing in the beginning of Fyuz on the stage, and I feel actually this is the best moment. This is going to be the best show, it's the best agenda, and we are in such an interesting inflection point in the industry. And it all revolves about yourself, basically our community. So what is TIP? TIP is not myself or my team or let's say the board. TIP is the community, all of you. We have 180 companies with more than 800 people active, experts active in our project groups. Maybe hard to see that chart, but we have a distribution of members of companies, organizations representing operators, software vendors, OEMs. Those are the three highest bars. Then we have anything from labs to chipset vendors to distributors to organizations, agencies representing the policy interests. And this group of people is actually what makes up what we are working on, what we are delivering. So in that sense, TIP is this community. What are we doing? What are these 800 experts doing? And what have they been doing in 2024? We have 6 active project groups. We graduated 3, meaning 3 came to a conclusion during the year. So 6 are continuing with very high focus on their topics, on Open RAN, on Open Optical, Open LAN or Open Wi-Fi, which is kind of the main output from that Open LAN group, Telco AI that Rob referred to just, and fixed broadband, as well as neutral host and infrastructure sharing, which is kind of a little bit different grouping that works more with operational models, business models on how to ensure we get better coverage and capacity in our networks. The experts participating in these project groups work with use cases, requirements, blueprints, test plans, operational models. And then within TIP, a big part is we actually take those test plans, apply them together with our community members, sometimes operators, sometimes vendors, sometimes independent labs, where we test solutions that are matching the requirements. And as they are matching and delivering what they say, we kind of we badge them, and we basically contribute this information about successfully finalized testing and those solutions being ready for the next phase, meaning prepared for consumption. We put them and promote them on our TIP Exchange, our marketplace, and we talk about and communicate about the vendors and the solutions, hopefully making it easier for the broader community outside of TIP also to access this ready-made solutions for their business purposes. What have we created in 2024? Just a few snapshots in testing and badging. We have issued about 40 badges this year, which is more than any year so far. And that's been in an improving and more disciplined process than ever before. We have released a first Open RAN system performance test plan, end-to-end system performance test plan. I'll come back to that in a minute. We have, for example, done a multi-operator proof of concept for IPoDWDM, a very technical concept that will for sure be talked about here. Actually, all of these topics will be talked about during those 3 days. And there's many, many more things, but I just wanted to highlight those 3 main topics. We certainly have done trials, early deployments. Rob mentioned the applications. 9 priority RApps, XApps have been tested live in lab as well as network environment in the UK and tested in Germany and the UK. We have tested live in South Africa by MTN and the vendor partners, the Phoenix Open Transponder, which is essential for providing more flexibility and increase the capacity in the backbone optical networks. We have more than 100,000 TIP OpenWiFi access points deployed. That's almost a double compared to last year this time. So that's a snapshot of things that have been done. And we've been also breaking new ground. We started this Telco AI group. There's been 2 playbooks and a number of other documents that are being prepared to be launched through the NHIS group regarding how do you deploy and benefit from neutral host solutions. And last but not least, we've issued 800 certificates in TIP Academy for more than 1,500 learners. And I think the last thing we should not ignore, as we go through transformation of the industry, at the end of the day, it's about people and talent, and learning, training is essential. And we have a number of companies that are partnering with us to provide content and make sure that we can distribute the learning capabilities to the people who need it. This test plan that I mentioned, there will be more talk about it in breakouts. I just wanted to mention this is a great example of cooperation in our community. So AT&T experts, Deutsche Telekom experts, and Vodafone experts have been working together to define 115 test cases with which we believe we can demonstrate an Open RAN system performing as a system-level solution and hopefully enable folks who want to deploy these type of solutions and don't have that same testing capacity that the aforementioned 3 big operators have, to have a potential to consume these solutions in a better way. So watch that space. I'm sure in the next couple of months we'll see more results coming out of using that test plan. Global impact. Again, we'll talk more about that, and we do have a policy roundtable process meeting round running in parallel to TIP with policy stakeholders and industry representatives discussing the global impact of TIP and the solutions and the Open RAN solutions in particular. But if you take a look at the map, we are covering the whole world with our partners. We have labs in most parts of the world who are actively participating with the testing and badging. We have been deploying OpenWiFi in many regions of the world. We have been testing and we are deploying open optical solutions in many parts of the world. And we are working together with governments and vendors and operators to promote Open RAN in a number of markets. So what are we going to do in 2025? I wanted to pick a couple of points that I believe will be also well covered in the next 3 days when you hopefully participate both in breakouts and follow the main stage conversations, keynotes, as well as panels. One thing that is certainly on top of my mind, and I think Rob alluded to it as well, we keep on working to expand the membership to represent the complete ecosystem, both from operator and vendor and various type of stakeholders that are needed to run this complex supply chain of connectivity solutions. I'm pretty sure there will be some interesting announcements during and after Fyuz of folks joining, and that means we hopefully get more diversity and also more leadership to drive and execute in these project groups that are at the heart of TIP's work. So the community is the community that produces the results. Obviously AI, we need to capture the revolution that is ongoing, but we need to capture in a way that is relevant for our industry, our organizations, our companies. And we are working in the Telco AI group with an increasing amount of operators, vendors, system integrators of different kind who jointly are exploring use cases, architectures, and very importantly, how the data needed to train the AI models applicable for telcos can be made available. We are continuing with the badging and testing. We are taking the process forward to making it even more diligent, more relevant, so that it actually serves the purpose of making it easier to consume open and disaggregated solutions. And last but not least, our neutral host infrastructure sharing group, which is operating in a slightly different mode, obviously, is going to continue to publish and bring forward solutions and models on how you could use a different approach, a different operational model to ensure we connect everything and everybody in this world. With that said, I am ready to hand over back to our excellent MC for the next step.
Thank you, Christian. Yes, thank you, Christian. And as we all know, a community is only as strong as its members. And Fyuz, it is arguable that it is most certainly Herculean. So now we have a very special guest from our host city. Dublin has been a hub of innovation and tech, but I may be a little bit biased in my opinion, as you may be hearing my very much Irish accent. But please join me in welcoming Jamie Cudden from Dublin City Council.
Hey guys, I'm Jamie from Dublin City Council, and I'd just like to say fáilte, or welcome. So I hope you guys are happy to be in Dublin today. Is that right? Yeah? Yay! So we even sorted out the weather for you, isn't it? Like it rains the whole time. So it's actually sunny today, so it's pretty amazing. Just in case you didn't know, Dublin is the European capital of smart tourism at the moment. And at the start, we wanted to innovate with technology and connectivity, and we did a project called the Portal. Anyone hear of the Portal? Yeah. Yay! At the start, it seemed like such a good idea. Let's connect Dublin and New York and have fun. Anyway, 23 billion global impressions, some good, some bad, but ultimately a great celebration of connecting people around the world. And I think it's just a demonstration of where technology is going. We've connected Philly, Lublin, Vilnius, and loads of other cities to come. So just a nice little project, innovation, tech, and connectivity. We love it. So check it out up near O'Connell Street if you're here the next couple of days. So we're in the heart of Dublin's Docklands. And I absolutely think this is one of the most innovative districts in the world. The transformation that we've seen over the last decade has been phenomenal here. You've got the convention center. Go up the road, you've got Google, or Google Town, as we call it. You've got Salesforce, HubSpot, Dogpatch, Innovation Hub. It is an absolutely amazing space, an amazing place, an amazing place to collaborate. So I'm going to show a short video here. You guys are into telecoms, into technology, into innovation. Well, I'm going to show you what's possible when you join all these together. So let's play the video.
Dublin's Docklands have experienced an extraordinary transformation. From an industrial port to a vibrant technological hub, accelerating the development of new innovations, raising awareness about the potential of new and emerging technologies, building trust, transforming public services, and creating community impact, addressing city challenges through collaboration, bringing together the City Council, industry, academia, and citizens to deliver impact. An award-winning Dublin City testbed, with thousands of sensors deployed, measuring the pulse of the city, delivering unique insights about water, waste, and the very air we breathe. Collaborating with the next generation to shape the city they want to live and work in. Connecting our past to our future. Smart Docklands, shaping the future of cities.
So I'm really proud of what's happening in Dublin on our doorstep. And that's got every project, is Internet of Things, AR, VR, AI, digital twin. It's got all the buzz, technology, but we're actually delivering it in a way that can make impact for citizens and communities. And what I want to say is that none of this is possible without telecoms and digital connectivity. And one thing we've learned over the last 10 years in Dublin is it's really hard to build networks, 5G networks, as we densify in our cities. And I absolutely love the work that TIP are doing to help transform and support cities and, I suppose, and operators and the whole ecosystem in how we build these networks more effectively. I'm absolutely the biggest fan of neutral hosts. I think cities need networks that are energy efficient, sustainable, aesthetically pleasing. They blend into the heritage of our cities. So the work you guys are doing is so important for what we want to achieve in our cities. We have a couple of cities, The Hague, we've got Madrid, we've got Westminster and Dublin talking this afternoon around how we need these type of networks to support our objectives and aims. So I'm delighted to welcome you to Dublin. I hope you have an amazing couple of days. I hope you get to know the city a bit more. Maybe have a pint of Guinness, I don't know. And to enjoy yourselves. And really look forward to see where your work goes and how you can support the needs of cities. And I'm really excited about your journey, and I hope you have an amazing time. Thank you.
Gaurav Mott, Jamie, or thank you, as we would say. Now, without further ado, let's dive into our first case study, okay? And this is going to be showcasing how Open RAN technology is being deployed with major industry players like AT&T and Ericsson. This session will highlight the technological advancements and real-world implementations happening today. Please join me in welcoming Sybil and Rob to the stage. And in an unusual turn, we are actually ahead of schedule. So who knew that was going to happen? Okay, so look, I'm going to be with you for another moment or two. So what we might do here is try and figure out who is in the room. Who here is from Ireland? Guys, I know it's a Monday morning, but give me a little bit more. Give me a woo if you're from Ireland. Nice? Who's over from the States? Ah, yeah. The Americans always bring their A game. I love it. And how about outside of that? UK? Reserved as usual. Okay. And how about mainland Europe? Germany, France, Spain? Wonderful, wonderful. Okay. Well, look, I hope that you guys are going to enjoy the next few days. If anybody does need recommendations of a decent pint of Guinness that you'll find here in Dublin, I'm sure the many Irish in the audience will be more than happy to oblige. While I've been given the thumbs up, that means I should stop speaking. So let's try this one more time. Let's welcome Rob and Sybil to the stage.
So I'm back. You guys see, I made sure that nobody would be confused now for this particular section. Who do I speak for? So I don't know. Maybe some of you know this company. I don't know. But yeah, somebody said woo for AT&T.
You should have informed me, Rob. I should have done the same.
Where's your hoodie? No? So yeah, first of all, I just want to make sure, now when I speak today, now I'm done with my TIP responsibility publicly to speak. Now I get to speak on behalf of what it's like to work with a fantastic partner like Ericsson, especially on our journey specifically towards Open RAN. So thank you, Sybil, for coming here and speaking to us. I think you're on a similar journey because I was just thinking about it earlier. Last year I was sitting like you guys down there, and suddenly I saw a big screen version of Frederick. So you guys remember from my chat earlier about I was getting all kinds of feedback about the big screen version of Rob virtual only, and then in person. So this year we get live Sybil, who I think actually, honestly, better representation of Ericsson than Frederick. Well, sorry to Frederick. But just glad that she's here, and welcome to TIP. So what are you guys thinking? Are you thinking you might join TIP, or you haven't decided yet?
Yeah, I think you know the answer very well. Of course, I mean, we are all into openness, and of course we also announce our joining TIP, and I think you did a great keynote speech in the beginning. I mean, I think it is, before we even start talking about openness and what are we doing to really industrialize it and make it real, I actually start by thanking you, and on behalf of Ericsson and AT&T, of course. I mean, I think it's been a great collaboration, but of course, both enabling this transformation, but I think it's not only about what we do, like changing and really realizing the whole openness and making this transformation, but how we do it. I think it was really great collaboration between our teams. So big thanks. It's very exciting, but I think without collaboration, it would have never happened. But maybe starting with my first question, get your reflections, right? We just announced our partnership and transformation journey already 1 year. Time flies. So where are we?
It's a really good question, and I think we're very excited about where we are. So OpenWiFi and cloud and programmability were principal objectives for us in this deal. But also underneath that was really a specific need and a desire for us to modernize our network and to finish out our build for mid-band frequencies. So for those of you who are not familiar, who are not from the US or not aware, there's been a race, if you will, to try to build out the mid-band frequencies because this gives you a unique 5G experience. We believe that together with SA, that wide bandwidth together with SA, gives you the opportunity to do something unique and different with the network. Hopefully something that we believe, and we already can see, both from ourselves as well as for our competitors, that it's unlocked new value for things like, for example, fixed wireless, or now we're seeing RedCap emerge pretty dramatically. So those were important central goals for us. So modernize, build, and then finally provide us with open, programmable, and an opportunity to introduce new vendors into the network. So an exciting opportunity to work with Ericsson as the partner, to bring cloud and cloud innovation specifically in the network, both on the network programmability side, but also very much on the cell sites themselves. And for us, it's been an interesting journey. Definitely a lot of things learned in a very short period of time. We've gone through a lot because we're doing, effectively changing out 70 or modernizing 70,000 sites, if not more, over the span of roughly 3 years. So automating that migration, that modernization, has been a significant effort of our teams. And we've learned a lot, specifically on how to do that, leveraging things like digital twins, leveraging automation and how we deploy and how we get design detail out to our turf and our site vendors, but then finally actually very specifically on how we introduce cloud into our network in very distributed ways. So we find, of course, the challenges are, well, we think, oh, how hard is it to put a server at a cell site? How hard is it to put additional servers in non-regional locations, heavily distributed locations? We find that this is stuff that our operational teams have to consume and learn about. And this has been actually the strength of the partnership, is that we learn together on how to gain the scale, because we are a brownfield. It's one thing to build it out at scale if you're a greenfield, or if you're largely replacing everything in the network with something else. And that's kind of where the world has been today. Largely greenfield deployments, or largely in what I would call pseudo-greenfields, because it was a complete rip and replaced with the new cloud-based technologies. In our case, we're doing and we're overlaying cloud specifically on our existing network. So that's a migration, and that's a different flavor of what you have to do.
Yeah, I guess we can also touch upon, as you said, partnership. I mean, partnership between us, but also the ecosystem plays a great role.
I'm supposed to ask you that question, I thought, no? But yeah, what do you think the role of the ecosystem is overall in the network?
Yeah, but of course, I mean, I think one thing is, as I said, I mean, basically bringing the whole network, all making this modernization. But if you want to truly open, as we are intended to do, we need to work with partners. And I think we are very proud because we have the largest ecosystem partnership in the market. And we are working in basically through all different layers of openness, open management, cloudification, open frontal, all of them happening at the same time. But I think the interesting and important thing is not everyone is willing to make it successful. And that collaboration makes the great power of innovation, changes, solving problems every single day. I think I really truly see that. But as a result of it, maybe some proof points, right? When we look into open management, you very well mentioned also in your keynote speech, this is definitely one of the biggest areas of openness, and we are already working with dozens of app developers working on our SMO platform, open management platform, and we are helping them to learn and write their applications on top, while we ourselves do, but this is not contradiction. We need to work and innovate together. And I think I also know that AT&T is doing the same. You're already start writing apps on our platform, so it's already showing that it's really getting successful. I mean, cloudification was another dimension. And I think the important part that we succeed so far, I believe, is that we manage portability. We are not really locked in any dimensions. And that, for me, is key. And we see in the service domain, we see in the cost domain, we see in basically any horizontal area in cloudification, we can seamlessly move from one server to another or one generation of acceleration from another very, very easily. And that it will, of course, enable faster innovation in AT&T's network and the CSPs in general. And I guess lastly, open frontal. I think here it was more about showing that it is possible. It's not only standardization. It is happening, and we showed it in Barcelona with our partners. And now we are very close to bringing down the AT&T network next year in the commercial deployment. So, and at the same time, of course, we are looking into how can we ensure performance, because we don't want to sacrifice any single bit when we deploy these networks, which is very key in these high-performing programmable networks, right? So maybe before, now the open transformation and the all network build, but you mentioned very well, right? This is about SA, this is about monetization, this is about what is next. So and I would like to ask about programmability. I guess for our dimension of programmability is about how can we unlock with the programmable layer, which means that you can interact with your network, you can bring, kind of steer the network behavior in a much, much simpler intent. By the way, thank you very much for the quote in our 5G Advanced Portfolio launch, which was one of the biggest enablers for programmability. So how do you see with our attempt together to bring programmable run with our 5G Advanced Portfolio, how it will help you to, for your end users and to AT&T for the next cycle of innovations with programmable run?
Really good questions. And I mean, I think it's been exciting for us to watch as Ericsson moves from being a vertical company into a horizontal one. And your leadership and you have been very clear on this is a journey and this is a transformation, and it's significant. And it's also similar for us to be able to consume solutions that are disaggregated horizontal as opposed to consume those solutions which are purely vertical and all integrated. So as we move in that domain and we move towards that, we see that there's both challenges as well as opportunities, unlocking opportunities specifically that can be created through a new network programmable layer. And you heard me allude to that, the one that we're perhaps thinking about for the future is as the network gets and moves in this domain, we think security will be an important consideration. But for us, I think what we look at primarily is the migration of our legacy apps, our legacy tooling. And as you said, we've enabled this now to be simplified because now we have one interface to align with, as opposed to we previously had 3 different SON platforms in the network. We're going to consolidate to a single SON platform with a single open API and a single interface. That will lead to us having an ability for our own teams to focus on the business logic as opposed to the platform enabling infrastructure, the tooling for the apps themselves. So being able to do that gives us a real opportunity to start to think about how we can scale apps. We're also working with partners who are thinking about taking that business logic and automatically generating the code itself. So using generative AI-based techniques to be able to do that. So there's a real opportunity, I think, to say, okay, if that app gets generated for an Ericsson-based platform, perhaps it can easily be ported to another platform without pain, without trouble, because it's now automated code generation. So this is an exciting thing for us, in addition to basically moving our SON, our typical SON kind of applications, like things that were normally associated with neighbor list planning or PCI planning or RATCH identifier planning, moving those into a domain where they can all be simplified. And we can consume solutions, best of breed, best opportunities overall. In the meantime, what we have largely seen in the history with us is that our automation domain was per domain. So every domain has a different automation tooling, a different set of scripts, a different set of pieces associated with it. So whether it was vendor specific or it was domain specific, we spend a lot of effort actually investing to consume faults, to consume performance in the network, and then take action in an automated way. So again, an opportunity to leverage a common interface, but also to leverage, now that we have a common interface, AI-based techniques to specifically move in that direction. So we see a lot of opportunity there specifically on that space alone on the automation side. And then of course the thing that we're most excited about is ultimately monetization. And there are different forms of monetization that you can imagine. We can create apps that create a unique environment on a venue by venue basis. So a venue wants to know what's the performance of their network, they can find out by looking at an app. Or specifically, if they really want to look carefully at can I now control, to some degree, the experience of the users that are in my venue based on what they want? We can now enable that with network slicing. Those kinds of things are exciting to us as new opportunities that will allow us to monetize the network. But I'd remiss without saying that we finally understand that most of the spectrum that remains in the network is actually, to be honest with you, strongly encumbered by incumbents. So the challenge we have in trying to unlock that additional spectrum is largely through being able to consume the network and use the RAN itself as a sensor to be able to share with incumbents, whether it's a radar source or it's a vertical that is using potentially the same spectrum within the network. So we're very excited about the opportunity to use our spectrum, but also to unlock spectrum itself. So lots of exciting things ahead and enabled really through a strong partnership.
Okay, so I guess we interrupt, but again, big thanks. I think it's definitely ahead of a lot of interesting things will happen. Big transformation in how we build networks, how we ensure performance, how we manage, how we simplify, and as a result, how we can actually increase the connectivity as a whole and to really monetize the network.
And so Eugenia said we had to have a high five before we left.
Yes,
so maybe
we can have a hug.
I like that better. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
So big thank you to Rob and Sybil there as well. And just as a reminder, you can have a chance to meet our speakers downstairs around lunchtime at 12:30 once we finish up on the main stage, and make sure that you do connect in with all the speakers that you want to today, which you can also connect in via the website with LinkedIn details being available there. So next up, we'll hear from Cayetana Carballo on the evolution of optical transport solutions in the Telefónica group. Cayetano is going to share key benchmarking activities and discuss the transformation of optical transport network architecture. So please join me in welcoming Cayetano to the stage.
Good morning. As you heard, I'm Cayetano Carballo. I'm leading core transport and service platform in Telefónica Corporate Technical Unit. And it is my pleasure to be here for telling you about our experiences in open transport, in openness and disaggregation in transport. But before going to that, let's put that in context. When evolving our network in Telefónica, we are taking advantage of technology. Technology is evolving and it's giving us a lot of opportunities. And we see these main 4 levels that we have. First of all, managing the technological cycle, so switching off legacy when we have to switch off. Also, we are putting a lot of focus in automation, and artificial intelligence is giving us a lot of opportunity for going forward with this automation. We want to have a cloudified network, meaning having all the advantages of what cloud operating model means in terms of agility. But also, and this is why I'm here today, we are focusing in openness, in open and disaggregated network. Why to have an open and disaggregated network? It is not just for the sake of openness. I'm not paid for having an open network. What I'm paid for is for having my customer experience as good as possible. So best customer experience in a very efficient way, meaning having a high level of automation in the network with the right TCO. For this reason, we are going to openness. And we are not going to openness only in transport, we are going in all the network layer. For sure, in core, we have already disaggregated the network. Containerized core is already kind of open and disaggregated core. Telefónica, as you know, we are pushing heavily in Open RAN. But also we are doing open broadband. We have disaggregated OLTs, and we are delivering our fixed broadband service with open OLTs. We have that even in the home. We have open CPEs. We have as well disaggregated the software and hardware in the CPE. But today I'm talking here about transport. So you see, in all the network layer, Telefónica is pushing for this openness and disaggregation. Talking about transport, first of all, about IP. So last year here in Fyuz, I commented that we were testing for doing a swap of the air. So we had some hardware from EdgeCore, and we wanted to change the vendor, and we were doing tests. We have done already the deployment. We have some hundred of routers, cell-side router, that we changed the vendor over the air. We have Atran software on top of EdgeCore, and this is working properly. So this has been a very good example of what openness is bringing to us. We want to expand this, and we want to do this in transit and peering, and also for new cell-side gateway. We have been testing and we have been piloting, but for the time being, we have not seen the right TCO. And as I said before, we want to go to openness just because of automation and TCO. And if we have not the right TCO, we are not going to implement that just for the sake of being open. Okay? So we are struggling with that. We are working, and we have to continue pushing that for having the right TCO. But for the time being, for cell-side gateway and peering and transit, although we have all the technical functionality we need, we have not the right TCO. So we are not pushing so heavily that into production. Around optical, we are doing a lot of things. So Telefónica, we have decided to have partial optical disaggregation. Every single commercial process, every single RFQ in our network will be split by line and by transponder. So we will select in one side the line and in the other side the transponder. And we are implementing that in the network today. But also, this partial optical disaggregation gives us the opportunity of IPoDWDM. That is the usage of Coherent Pluggable directly in the router. We see this as a massive improvement, just because of the cost of the pluggable itself, but because of the savings in energy and savings in footprint. We are testing that. We have tested 400 SATA and 400 SATA plus, so -10 and 0 dBm. And this is working properly with all the functionality, with all the performance that we need for certain distances. We want to massify that, and this is applicable especially to the backhaul. For having this into the backhaul, we need to go to 100 gig, not 400, and we need to have the QSFP 28 form factor. We are working for that, and whenever this will be ready, we will massify that. For doing this, we need to have the right management system. Remember that for openness, we want to have right level of automation and the right TCO. With Pluggable, the right TCO is for granted. The level of automation we want to use using our SDN architecture. We are defining the use cases and the data models in mass and in tip group for SDN controller. And this is quite useful for this. We need to have the semis interface between the router and the pluggable. We need to have the open config between the router and the SDN controller, and we need TAPI on the other side for the optical. This is depicted over here. So this is the diagram. We engineers always love to have diagrams, so you have one here. This is the diagram of the management model we are pushing for pluggables. And with this, we need to have, or we want to have, the right level of automation. We need to manage the pluggable like we are managing today the transponder non-disaggregated. For sure, we have some commercial resistance. Router vendors are not always happy to have a third-party pluggable, and line system vendors are not always happy to have a pluggable that is not from them feeding the line, but we keep pushing. This is already part of our requirement in all the commercial processes. So no router vendor will provide us with a router if they are not allowing us to have a third-party pluggable in this router. And for sure, no line system will provide us with a line system if they are not opening to have a party transponder, or in this case, the party pluggable to feed the line. This, together with the fulfillment of all the TAPI, OpenConfig, and CMIS interfaces that are mandatory for us. So, to conclude, openness and disaggregation is key part of the technological evolution of Telefónica, just not for the sake of openness, as I said, but for having the right level of automation and the right level of TCO. We are pushing that not only in transport, but in all the network layer. We have been pushing openness and disaggregation in IP, and whenever we have the right TCO, we are deploying, but it's not always the case. Our main problem there maybe is the hardware of the router, and we want to work on that. We need to have a scale, and if all the operators were using this openness, the cost of the hardware will come down. We have clear plans for pushing the partial optical disaggregations. We are already using that in production, and we want to expand that to the pluggable. But it is key for us to manage the pluggable in the right way. So with the right level of automation to continue providing to our customers with the right customer experience. This is what I would like to share with you. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you, Cayetano. Now, it is time to get excited because we have our first panel discussion of the day. And it's going to be on exploring the state of open and disaggregated networking solutions for open transport. Anybody try to say that 10 times fast and succeed? Come back to me. This discussion will offer insights from leading operators and OEMs on the benefits and challenges of distributed and disaggregated routers. Please join me in welcoming our esteemed panelists to the stage while we continue to get set up. So I'm going to hang out here with you guys for just another moment or two. I am aware that people have been here since 10 a.m., so if you would like to take a moment, stand up, do a little bit of a shimmy or a shake or a stretch, please feel free to do so and don't feel weird about it at all. It's totally normal. So, no takers? Okay, let's try and get everybody to stand. Let's see if this will work. Are you with me or against me, audience? Thank you. Appreciate this. I appreciate these three gentlemen going along with my nonsense at 11 a.m. on a Monday morning. So let's just do a little bit of a stretch it out. I can see all of you on your phones as well. Don't think I can't see that when I'm up here. Just have a bit of a stretch it out. It is a Monday morning. I know that we're all tired, and maybe we had a fun weekend, a relaxing weekend. Who knows? But it is time to get ready for this next panel. Do take pictures. As a reminder, hashtag Fyuz24 if you are going to be sharing it across socials, whether that's LinkedIn, X, or any of your other choices that are there. I do believe we are about ready to kick off. So if you would like to, of course you can remain standing, but if not, you can take a seat as we kick this off. So, once more, I would like to welcome our panelists to the stage, and we'll kick off our next session. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining this panel. This is an exciting opportunity for me to present the state of the business for open transport. My name is Arturo Mayoral. I'm a technical program manager for the Open Optical and Packet Transport project group at the Telecom Infra project. And I'm delighted to be here with some of the leaders that has been driving the transformation of open transport networks. Today, I think that we are going to be able to get valuable insights on how this transformation process has occurred and what's or could be expected in the next years to come. So I will welcome warmly our panelists. First, Cayetano Carbajo, Director of Core Transport and Service Platforms at Telefónica Global CTO. Welcome, Cayetano.
Thank you.
Then we have Lloyd Empalele, is General Manager of Transport and OSS Tools at MTN. Welcome.
Thank you.
And also, I should say as well, that is the new co-chair of the Open Optical and Packet Transport project group at TIP. Dr. Kenji Kumaki, General Manager and Chief Architect of Technology, Transformation and Planning at KDDI. Welcome, Kenji.
Thank you.
And Jose Antonio Gomez, Senior Optical and SDN Transport Architect at Vodafone Group, and also our new co-chair of the Open Optical and Packet Transport community.
Thank you, Arturo.
So with the presentations done, I'm going to start the first question with Cayetano, who is already warming up. So from the business perspective, how do you think are the main reasons for an operator to jump in on a shift of the technology in the open transport segment?
Well, you heard before, it is not just for the sake of openness, it's for the sake of increasing the level of automation and for having the right TCO. When we evaluate an open and disaggregated product, normally, and the fulfillment of all the standardized interfaces that allow us to do more things from automation are there. So if we push for openness and disaggregation, normally, but in the case of transport as well, we will increase the possibilities that we have for automating our network, and this is our push. Mainly this is the main reason.
Thank you, Cayetano. Lloyd, from MTN perspective, what will be the drivers for you?
Yeah, firstly, thank you for the opportunity, Arturo. Always a pleasure to be part of these sessions. Yeah, look, I think from our end, the complexity of the network, has been, the biggest driver. The multi-vendor environment, but mainly, the vendor lock-in, because with the multi-vendor environment, with the combination of having, the vendor lock-in was what, has driven us to, to be so participative even in the, the community. So that is the first point, to address that. And then also, we're hoping that through addressing this, then we address the whole issue of cost efficiency. We've been, under pressure from a business, perspective to make sure that, we bring down, the cost. And this multi-vendor environment and the complexity was not, helping. So that's, the second point. And then, just hoping to, bring down the cost and so forth. And then thirdly, it's just, the flexibility of the solution compared to the integrated solutions that we have today, because the market is so dynamic and fast-moving. Therefore, from an MTN perspective, we've got, different tier markets that require, some of them require niche type of, solutions. So the flexibility is important. So vendor lock-in, multi-vendor environment, driving down cost, and also the flexibility to, to come up with solutions that are niche. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Lloyd.
Thank you.
Dr. Kenji, from KDDI perspective, you would like to complete?
Okay, thank you. Well, we KDDI are focusing on open disaggregation model. Our strategy is to start small and a limited area with simple features, and to reduce the risks of service outage, to also gain operational insights as well. Also, we aim to standardize our routers solutions globally within TIP as open disaggregation model.
Thank you, Kenji. Now, Jose Antonio, I'm going to ask you, how do you see or how you have seen the evolution of this technology and the market over the last few years? Do you see that has been a tangible progress or still a lot of ground to cover?
Yeah, I mean, there is obviously tangible progress that has been achieved. I mean, we are progressing, and I think we are on the right track. Okay, and in any case, we need to still do a lot of things to open more opportunities. No, so for instance, I would say the thing here is that how we can benefit or how we can introduce new innovations or technologies or solutions over existing networks. No, how we can benefit from those innovations. One example could be the use of coherent pluggables in routers. No, what we call now IPoDWDM, or we call traditionally IPoDWDM. How we can benefit of those kind of innovations, no, or how to manage the life cycle of existing implementations. No, so in this sense, I think having a reference SDN architecture, for instance, and leveraging on existing APIs and data models, and extending those if needed. I mean, it's fundamental to achieve this. No, it's in this sense we are working on the use cases that we need to make sure that we are able to exploit the potential of these new innovations, as I said, over existing networks. No, so this is one thing. Let's say the technology plays a role. Let's say obviously. But I think we also need to consider other factors like the operational aspects, no? So, I mean, mainly because initially you can face some reluctance when starting to deploy a new technology in the existing network. And in this sense, the work that we have been doing, for instance, in the DCSG with live network trials, has helped us to identify which are the existing operational processes and tasks that we need to evaluate or maybe adapt to make sure that we are able to, let's say, to roll out these new technologies. No? So this is, for me, another important aspect that we need to address.
Thank you, Jose. I think now we are going to continue illustrating the progress of open transport by presenting some of the interesting case studies of this set of operators today. So Kenji, do you like to explain to the audience your experience in open transport, your successful case studies, and what are the lessons learned that you have gained?
Okay, well, we KDDI have deployed TIP incubated DDBR pairing routers as pairing routers in our production networks last June. And also we are going to be moving on DDBR clusters as backbone routers in our production networks as well. Regarding the pairing routers, actually these routers have been really, really stable since then. And compared to Open RAN architecture, the router architecture itself is really quite simple. So we haven't experienced any technical issues such as integration and also the performance as well. But regarding DDBR, we still have one soft vendor and two hardware vendors right now. So that issue and regarding DDBR like that, and within TIP, KDDI and Turkcell have deployed DDBR in their production networks. Even in the world, some carriers that include United States have deployed them, meaning that the limited number of the hardware and the software vendors is leading to slow market maturity. So that is our challenge.
This links perfectly well with the next question. So I identify that from the technical perspective, the solution is mature, in this case, the distributed backbone routers. And from the market perspective, there are some challenges in terms of increasing the number of vendors. Cayetano, I would like to get more profound insights on what you consider the more technical barriers or commercial barriers for operators to massively adopt or widely adopt open transport technologies.
Well, in our case at least, when talking about disaggregation in IP, our main barrier has been TCO. We have done this. I mean, we tested distributed routers. We have tested a lot of cell-side gateway. We have in production cell-side gateway, but we are not expanding to a massive level in our network, mainly because of TCO. So this has been the main issue. This is the negative side. The positive side is that there are many barriers that has been solved. The functionality that we see in the disaggregated model in the routers, but also in the optical disaggregation, functionality are mainly okay for the usage we want to have. Performance as well is okay. So the point of technical limitation for deploying that is being solved. I would not say that it's completely solved, but we are with a reasonable level of technical maturity for using openness from technical point of view. And also another positive sign is that we have the tools for managing this element. I mean, all the work that we are doing with SDN controller, I mean, OpenConfig, TAPI, and all the model that we are working together for implementing is giving us the tool for managing this disaggregation, and this is positive. So from my point of view, it is true that we have not a complete portfolio of vendors, and it's true that we have, as Kenji said, it's true that we have not the right level of TCO, but I think whenever the scale will come, this will be solved.
Scale is definitely a situation that we are facing right now. But you remark a very important point, no? Is from the technical perspective, when you introduce multi-vendor solutions, there is a challenge on interoperability. So in that regard, I think that TIP is an important part of the community, on the industry, is been working on trying to make the glue within these open and disaggregated technologies. So I would like to ask the opinion of one of our, well, both of our new co-chairs. We will be starting with Lloyd, your opinion about how TIP is improving or mitigating the problems on integration of multi-vendor solutions. And if you wanted to link also with the previous question about challenges as well, you are welcome.
Yeah, thank you once again, Arturo. And once again, I think it's a privilege to have been appointed, co-chair of OOPT. Look, I think a number of the points were made here, and what Cayetano, just mentioned around, the TCO and some of, these challenges related to, to adoption. So my own view, I mean, with some of the activities, taking place, within, OOPT, I think, what is key, and, this has come, a long way since OOPT has been, established, is more the collaboration of, the community, the project group, with the standardization, bodies, not necessarily reinventing, the wheel there, but just ensuring that we create a common standard across, the open, transport, products that we have, across the board. And I also think that we shouldn't be, everywhere. I think there's a good focus in terms of the technical requirements that we're driving within, the project group. I think, that is good to address some of these, existential challenges, if you want to call it that. And, I would say, even from an operator perspective, some of, the big gains have been incorporating some of these standards and, open interfaces in some of our processes as far as, the issuing of, RFPs and so forth, are concerned. So I think, we're making, strides, but those for me, are the key areas to have some level of, standardization that fits into, the test and validation, processes that we have, the badging and so forth. I think it's a very, good, steadfast, process that will ensure that whatever we're sending out into, the market has gone through a very rigorous, process. Thank you.
Thank you, Lloyd. Jose Antonio, well, I think that also Cayetano mentioned, and Lloyd as well, is interoperability one of the key areas. What you will highlight from the effort of TIP on the last couple of years? What is your experience there?
Well, my experience is that at the end, TIP is a very collaborative environment where all the parties we have been working together, and we continue working on the openness of the transport network. And I need to say here that let's say we are not doing everything from zero, right? We are not reinventing the wheel. Basically, we are trying to reuse as much as possible what is available in terms of, I don't know, standards, technologies, APIs, data models. For instance, in the case of the MAST project, we have been developing a reference SDN architecture by, let's say, by using APIs, open APIs that are available, like NetConf or ENMI, to name two, or data models from IETF or from OpenConfig, okay, and others. So we are reusing as much as possible what is available, and additionally, we are extending to cover the gaps that we see now for the use cases that we need into that SDN reference architecture, no? And in that sense, I think the work that has been done is very good, and I would say that I encourage, let's say, other players to participate and contribute as well. So
this is an open call for other operators and vendors to participate in TIP and in OOPT in particular. We are going to end in few minutes, so we are going to have one last question for all the speakers. I will continue with you, Jose Antonio, you are close to me. So what do you consider the key success factors in order to see massive deployment of open transport in the next 5 years?
I would say that, let's say, openness, disaggregation, and automation might play a key role in facilitating the evolution of existing networks. Now we have, all operators have very important deployments already in place, and this continue to evolve. And I think these three aspects are fundamental to make sure that we can benefit and fully exploit the advantages of new technologies. No, like I was saying before, the Coherent Pluggables in routers, or an end-to-end reference SDN architecture for automation. So I think in that sense, the work that we have been doing in TIP has been fundamental.
Thank you, Jose Antonio. Kenji, would like to also provide the final conclusions from your perspective?
Well, the key success factors actually depend on the number of hardware and software vendors. As I mentioned, we still have one software vendor and two hardware vendors right now. So we need more software competitors in open disaggregation space. And on the other hand, actually, there are already enough competitors in the current traditional router vendors, like Cisco and Juniper, right? So, or if more new software vendors come out, obviously, open disaggregation space will revitalize this industry.
Thank you, Kenji. Lloyd, your turn.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, this journey has been running for quite, some time, and I think we're contending with some of, the strongest challenges. So I think from a technology and a strategy point of view, open and disaggregation, no doubt, it's working. In order for us now to succeed, we need to just make sure that, we are able to address, the immediate needs of, the operators. I think we can't overstate, the point of, the TCO. I think we managed to allay the fear around moving from integration to disaggregation, at least from, our point of view, where there was just concern around you had this thing combined, now you're scattering it about, and who's going to take responsibility, and so forth. So I think while we were talking, backstage, I mentioned, the issue of SRv6, for example. While the software vendors are there already, the hardware is still lagging, behind. So, being able to sort of like match one-to-one with what, the operator requires will go a long way, in helping, succeed, of course, with the TCO coming, because one unintended consequence that, we have picked up was that although we've managed to beat, the existing price book, and this including, software, hardware, as well as, the system integration, the market quickly consolidated to beat that price, taking advantage of, the scale. So if you look at most of the players in the space, they are not as large. So, addressing that problem, because at times it's a wait and see type of game. And if we manage to make inroads from that perspective, then, there could be a quick, response from, the vendor. So we must think around how we do that. I think those will be key points, to make sure that we succeed in this space.
You mentioned feature parity, and you mentioned also scale. So I think there are two very important factors. Nice shoes, by the way.
Thank you.
And Cayetano, we started with you, and we end up as well.
Before answering your question, let me join Jose Antonio mentioned to MAS. I think we should be proud and happy of what we are doing in MAS. There's a strong collaboration, and we have already use cases and data model that we in Telefónica we are using in production network in a complete standardized way. And when we started this movement, this seemed to be far away, but we are already there. And this call for other operators to join MAS, I replicate. I think it's worth it to join. And we are working with all our vendors, not only open and disaggregated vendor, but also the conventional vendor, and they are helping us in fulfilling all the data models and all the interfaces that we are defining in MAS, what is great. So let's continue pushing with that. Said that, to your question, I think the clear factor that we can decide that open and disaggregation in transport will be there is because we are using this massively. And as I said, I think that the problem that you mentioned of scale, both from functionality but also from cost, is key. Once we have the right scale, I think this problem will be over. The proof point that openness and disaggregation will be a success in transport network will be a point of disruption. So when with this openness we can do things that in a conventional way we cannot do, then we will have the proof point that we are successful with this push. In the case of optical, without any doubt, the pluggable could represent this disruption. I think the level of cost that we will have with pluggable will be radically different from what we have today. Even in a way that we are thinking if the architecture of our transport network should continue to be the same, or shall we do more things with optical part because the cost of optical will come down dramatically. So this is the level of disruption. From point of view of automation, what we are doing with SDN, it is near to be disruptive. I mean, we are doing automation of things that we thought that we cannot automate, so we are near. I think this will be the level of measurement of the success, if we can disrupt the way we are operating and deploying our network.
Excellent, Cayetano. I think that I cannot agree more with you. Disruption is key. We have been able to see in the recent years new applications, new use cases that we are going to be also observing in other breakout sessions in the afternoon today and tomorrow in OOPT panels. So I welcome every one of you, if you are interested to know more about this, to join us on those sessions. So I will just want to thank you all, the panelists, for coming to Fyuz again in some cases, and also the newcomers, and thank you all of you for your attention today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my beautiful audience. Did you miss me? I missed you. Thank you again to our wonderful panelists for kicking off the very first panel session of the day. And up next, we have a session I have personally been looking forward to all morning, and we are focusing on Open RAN's global impact. Please join me in welcoming our esteemed guests here this morning as they share their expertise on the ever-evolving Open RAN ecosystem.
I guess we sit under our pictures. So they won't mistake us. How about this, a 50-50 panel? Well, so you've heard this morning, there was a case study, what's happening in Open RAN and AT&T. So we put together a panel across the region. We have Europe, we have Asia Pacific, we have United States. So we actually gotta get a lot more realistic view of what's really happening on the ground, what are the challenges, and the special guest is, we're gonna have US government representatives at the end. Don't wanna put you on the spot, but a good friend of mine's joining. So we will be talking about the challenges, what are we doing, what proactively we're doing together with TIP and so on, and also what the role a government has been playing to enable Open RAN. So with that, I'm gonna ask each of you, maybe I'll start with you, Jaysha, to introduce yourself, and I will go around and have some conversation for the next, 29 minutes.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jaysha Ray, the Associate Administrator for International Affairs at the National Telecommunications and Information Administration. We're the U.S. government agency that is principally responsible for advising the President on telecoms and information policy issues.
Hi everyone, Otsala Tefi. I'm in Orange Innovation, and I'm director of the department, which is treating actually innovation in radio access network and technical environment and energy.
So first, I'd like to say the congratulations, Caroline, as a TIP president.
Another volunteer role.
So my name is Tadeki Abeta, running the Open RAN NTT Docomo, and also the CTO of the Ericsson.
Okay, good morning everyone from my side, and also first of all thank you for having me here. My name is Peter Leidl from Deutsche Telekom. I'm responsible as a chief architect for our ORAN solutions, so looking at technology choices and technologies in general and high-level architecture. And I'm also responsible for our more research and trials activities and integration lab.
Okay, so let's start. So I just want to upfront say, these two gentlemen, I think when I started this whole virtual RAN, 14 years now, you're probably the first two that I talked to and work with, and we're still doing it. How about that?
It's good or bad?
Yeah, it is bad. So let me just start with this. Okay, let's go very regional specific. If you would just talk about the challenges ORAN adoption in your market, in your region. So maybe I'll start with you, Peter, because we've been on this, and then I know Abeda-san have a lot to say, and I'm sure Atusha too, and then we'll have Jason, if you wanted to chime in this also for the US region.
Okay, sure. So let's start with the challenges first, and good news we leave for later, right? One of the challenges that are often picked up in the context of being able to really deploy and consume disaggregated solutions with open interfaces and virtualized is really how we put things together again. And this is an area we are looking at, and I'm not sure if this is regional specific. I would really start. This is a generic problem. And for that part, interoperability testing and integration takes a lot of effort. And there are maybe 2 or 3 things I would mention we are focusing on. So one obvious one is that you invest and put a lot of automation into that process, so that you decrease the cost of executing on those tasks. But then the other thing is, how can we make sure that we are not having duplicity in the process of technology development, introduction, and deployment? And for that part, we are strongly collaborating also with other colleagues, operators. I would like to mention the effort that we are having under the umbrella of so-called Coalition of Willing, where we work together with AT&T, Vodafone, and I think Christian mentioned that in the morning. We've put together an advanced set of test plans that contains also the performance requirements, and the big deal about it is that we are aligned and in agreement with other operator colleagues contributing to that effort, so that we can help making sure that when solutions are tested once, it can be then easier adopted by others, and you do not need to repeat many of the tests again and again, which is a big deal.
Yep, makes sense. And how about Abeda-san? And you have a new role too.
Yeah, first the sharing status in Japan. So NTT Docomo already introduced the open multi-band Open RAN, and it's already nationwide ready. And even though the incumbent vendor we achieved interoperability, we already introduced a full CUD vendor in commercial. So this is station in NTT Docomo, and we also introduced that VLAN last year, and planning to extend our VLAN coverage. And the Rakuten is already, they also introduced the VLAN from 4G and 5G. And KDDI, I think he just announced that the status of the KDDI. So in Japan, so there are already 3 operators introduced at the Open RAN. So I'll read be ahead. So outside Japan, so especially Southeast Asia, actually, as of the city of the ORXI, we are working with the Southeast Asia operators, and we do that some trials in the countries like Indonesia or Philippines, and also we are planning to do the trial in the Cambodia. So the challenge for them is that they already deployed that network, And they don't have enough capability, especially for R&D side. So doing that interoperability test or integration, as Peter mentioned, that is one of the big challenges for them to do it from scratch. So we do help. So in our case, we provide the pre-integration solutions. That means that we pre-integrate together with our partners. That includes the hardware vendors, software vendors, accelerator vendors, also the cloud vendors. So then minimize the cost or effort for the pre-integration, and showing that the result, how the Open RAN does work well. And deployment scenario might be different according to the operators. Some operators not to deploy even 4G in the suburban area. That's the case of that people want to have the 4G. That's the case is that close to that greenfield area, greenfield in that area. But so the main city or metropolitan area, it's already covered. So to find a place of that area, so one opportunity is indoor. Indoor is relatively separate from that outside. So do need that tight interoperability between the existing vendors. So that is the opportunity. But of course, for the countries, cost is one of the challenge. So we are working with the partners how we can reduce cost, reduce the integration cost, reducing software cost, hardware cost, by leveraging not only the single country, but also showing the multiple country. And we also work with the government, maybe the Jason explained
a
earlier.
little bit more, yeah.
Yeah, on our side, maybe just to give you some context, so, and focusing on our European footprint, so we have only brownfield networks, and when it comes to introduction of Open RAN in our networks, we have two types of situation. I would say either it will be through, let's say, introduction of a new supplier through swap, or with the migration of our existing traditional network towards Open RAN and Cloud RAN. And in both cases, actually the exact timing is dictated somehow by business drivers, particularly, I would say, a renewal wave or some need for early swap due to some geopolitical situations or even new RAN sharing deals. That somehow explains what is one of the main reasons where up to now we were mainly focusing on some trials and small-scale deployments and pilots in order to prepare the next step before the wider scale introduction of Open RAN. Actually, we started, and we adopted a kind of phase approach. We started by introduction of Open RAN and Cloud RAN in rural areas around 1 year ago, where it was the most major scenario at that time. So it was a pilot in Romania with Open RAN sharing configuration, including also virtual 2G, which was the first actually in Open RAN sharing mode. And it was a very successful trial. We could actually observe quite actually performance parity between our traditional RAN and our Open RAN, which is very promising. Then in 2025, we plan to actually extend it, do some others, let's say, trials and small-scale pilots in different regions in our footprint in Europe, including high-capacity scenarios, including in urban. And then from 2026 onwards, our plan is to actually, we are expecting a kind of wide-scale deployment of Open RAN, including both low and high-capacity scenarios. So this was in a nutshell our plans and our assessment of maturity. I would say that so far our main focus was on the cloudification part, so mainly on the integration, vertical integration of the Open RAN solution. And at the same time, we also put emphasis on to have Open RAN ready equipment in our network with multi-vendor integration in a horizontal way. It's something that still needs to be improved. Particularly in the context of massive MIMO, we see that there are still very limited choices that are available. And there's also this integration complexity that, that needs to be managed. And as already discussed, we think that there are some initiatives in the ecosystem where we see that TIP and Orange Alliance are also very active, and also other operators in different regions to develop a global framework for integration and testing where we can actually reduce the overhead of testing and try to, as Peter said, test once and deploy so many times. And this is essential, actually. This is very important, but it still needs to be enhanced in order to be industrialized, at least in a global way. And something that is recognized globally and is requested by all of the operators in the sourcing process. That's the key for success of it. And gradually, as the ecosystem progresses, of course, we plan to introduce some more advanced, let's say, open RAN scenarios in our deployments with third-party radio units, with multi-vendor, let's say, a true multi-vendor SMO and multi-domain SMO, and also even enhanced RAN sharing scenarios when it is fully specified, because we see lots of value in this feature, in this functionality, thanks to Open RAN, because it could give operators more differentiation when they are in RAN sharing mode, which is a common scenario in Europe.
So sounds like we got pretty good, Japan, 3 operators already started commercializing. In Europe, we have trials and pilots with commercialization in next 2 years. So what's the US government view? What's happening in the US, North America, and global region as far as Open RAN is concerned?
Yeah, in terms of challenges, you always hear about security. And so from a government perspective, we decided to take a hard look at that question. And in the Quad, which is the grouping of the US, India, Japan, and Australia, we found that the threat landscape between traditional RAN and Open RAN networks is actually very similar. In fact, only 4% of the threats are unique to Open RAN.
Only 4%?
Yes.
Okay, that's good.
And so we are seeing the landscape in the United States is quite positive. And we are seeing that Open RAN is a very real approach. You see the commitments by the brownfield operators, which we heard about this morning, the emergence of the first greenfield nationwide network, small and medium enterprises really grasping on, and then a lot of engagement by the incumbent vendors as well. So the landscape is quite positive in the United States.
That sounds good. So let's go on to the second question. I think you all 3 has alluded to the challenges in integration, interoperability, and this morning we heard our chairman said, the operator's point of view, security is big thing. Can you maybe say a little bit about what the state of that is in your region? And is there any, I'll just combine the next question is what specific projects you're doing to overcome that in order to accelerate the O-RAN adoption in your region as well? You don't know if Peter Sanders, so you wanted to start with this and we'll come back.
Yeah, actually, we created the open RAN ecosystem. We call the OREX. So we are working with vendors to do the integrations in our lab. So the vendor bring that to their solutions. We do the integrations, and we also do the interoperability tests with that multiple RUs in our lab. And we share the resources. Since we have the long-term experience of that integration and the interoperability test, so we do share our result to accelerate the Open RAN. And we are also talking with that, the test equipment vendors to share that, for example, the profile. Then we can also minimize that IoT test period. So, our case is actually we use our lab as much as possible for the integration and interoperability. As for the security, yes, security is very important. So the information from that quad is very interesting, and we let and there is a gap only the 4% is that most of parties from that standardization, and the standardization is common for the Open RAN and the incumbent vendors because that we follow that the 3GPP and the ORAN Alliance. And the ORAN Alliance, maybe the Peter explains more detail, but we have a security working group, and they check the specifications. So much I checking that specification to, if there are some security risk is found in the specifications, so the much I check in the specifications. So much vendor check, that is the one of the point. And if we use a different equipment, then we can do that mutual observations. So each the vendor's equipment can check the other vendor's equipment because we follow that open interface. So if that the vendor implemented different one, then we can check it. So as a result, so we introduced that 5G Open RAN 2020, and we had the we have the Olympic game in 2021. And there are the huge cyber security attack, honestly, but we didn't see that any big problem during the Olympic period.
So if I can just, because you asked on the status of the disaggregation, and
yep.
Let me give first a little bit of light what we do from Deutsche Telekom point of view, and maybe I can also come back a little bit to security. But I think also in that context, what is important. So from DT point of view, we are looking at how can we deploy Open RAN in a multi-vendor approach where it matters. And of course, there security question comes in. But what we are doing specifically, where we see good maturity of the specifications and also implementation, is open front haul. And you may have seen that the Deutsche Telekom in Germany is deploying multi-vendor open front haul together with Nokia and Fujitsu, and we are progressing with the also ambition to have 3,000 plus sites by 2027. So that's one, open front haul. Second then is management framework, independent management framework, and Atusa mentioned that importance already, which is relying on also O1, O2 interfaces from the ORAN Alliance, and we took an approach to work towards own developed SMO framework. And then thirdly, also cloudification area, so adoption of Cloud RAN. And here I would mention what we are focusing on also, how do we make it with the portability requirement as essential, so that you can change the application on top of the platform. And there specifically, it is important to look at tooling and what kind of tools you are using to prepare your infrastructure, and how much control over that tooling you want to have. So there are a lot of pieces in it, and that's what we are focusing on. And then from security point of view, of course, you need to have basically zero trust approach, and since the beginning, and that's what we are focusing on.
How about you, Atusha? And anything, by the way, I forgot to ask, any telco AI that you have been adopting into that, and feel free to elaborate that too, because I know we talked about that a little bit in our prep.
Yeah, actually, regarding challenges of interoperability and integration, indeed, we see that there are still some challenges, and particularly on the open frontal and on the SMO, as already discussed, actually. On the open frontal, we see more challenges for the context of massive MIMO. Adoption in the ecosystem is still very limited, but we expect that with the actually new split in the ORAN Alliance ULPI, there are more chance for wider support within the whole ecosystem. And of course, then some let's say, framework for testing and certification could also help adopting it sooner by the ecosystem. On the SMO, we already discussed. I would also like to actually emphasize again on the importance of openness of the SMO in order to have a true multi-vendor solution. And knowing that actually we have one strong requirements related to SMO and which is related to be able to have a single SMO which is capable to manage both our traditional RAN and also our open and cloud RAN. On the security topic, maybe just a quick word also. It's of course a very important topic for us as operator. There have been lots of progress in, since during the past years in the ORAN Alliance on development of security features and related testing. But there's also some good initiatives that are ongoing, particularly through discussion with GSMA NISAs and European 5G NISAs in order to make them recognize and adopt the ORAN security assurance schemes as part of the European 5G NISA scheme. And this is a very important milestone because it would actually help us to have a global certification framework for products, for Open RAN products to be tested against. I think you wanted also to cover telco AI, maybe?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring that in, since we are starting a telco AI project, and we in TIP, and we're gonna see a lot of focusing on that. So if there's anything that you come to mind, just in our conclusion page, definitely add that in as well. But since we have about 6 minutes left, let me just go ahead and let Jaysha start in to talk about how the U.S. government's role specifically. I know you've been working with especially with the beta sound, for example, and how do you see what you have done so far and what you think the next 4 years could bring to the table as well?
Well, as the token government rep here, I can assure you that the US government firmly believes that industry can and should continue to lead in this area. But there is a role for governments here, and so that is why in the US and with our partners, we've been very engaged in ensuring the appropriate policies are in place, supporting R&D. In fact, many of our labs are investing heavily in Open RAN. Our Institute for Telecommunications Sciences, for example, is operating an Open RAN lab. They've conducted 5G challenges over the past several years. And then at NTIA, we have our Public Wireless Supply Chain Innovation Fund, which is a $1.5 billion program to accelerate the movement towards open architectures. And we are very excited to be announcing our second Notice of Funding awards this month, so stay tuned, but those will be focused on the radio. But international cooperation is really key to all of this, as Abeda-san mentioned, and so that's why we're engaged with our partners around the world through the Quad, through the Global Coalition on Telecommunications, which is the broadest grouping to date of international partners focused on telecoms policy issues, and then, of course, through our recent International Open RAN Symposium, which brought together 300 participants from more than 20 countries to talk about reliable, consistent, and international testing and R&D. And so I am very excited about this momentum that we have now and into the future on Open RAN that needs to be a deep collaboration with industry, but also internationally.
Peter, I know you want to talk a little bit about what German government is doing.
Oh, I can second that, yes. So first of all, the governmental institutions play a critical role in adopting new and innovative technologies. And in the case of Germany, I would like to mention that, for example, the BMDW ministry, which is Bundesministerium für Digitales und Verkehr, which is a federal ministry for digital and transport, has supported initiatives similarly like NTIA is doing. So thanks to that support, we were able to set up in Berlin the open lab that we call I14Y lab, that is exactly focusing on contributing into helping to solve the integration challenge, helping newly coming vendors to be able to test in the open and end-to-end environment. And colleagues, they have done also fantastic contributions to ORAN Alliance Plugfests that are ongoing actually, and we are concluding the fall Plugfest of this year. So there were 10 setups deployed and interoperability tested, and also invested a lot into automation. So how can we fully automate all the conformance testing and increase efficiencies? And colleagues are also showcasing some of the stuff here at Fyuz. So please feel free to visit and see.
That's great. Anyone else want to chime in?
Yep. So Japanese government is also very supportive to our activity, and also the US government. And not only that, so the two governments, we also work with the local government like Cambodia or Indonesia. The reason why we want to minimize gap in that country, I mean that still there are huge gap, for example, education. The main city, they have enough staff and a good education program they have, but the rural area they don't have. So the communication can minimize the gap or shorten the distance. So through that, the Open RAN or 5G network, we can minimize the gap. And also that, the Open RAN, there is that they lower the barrier. That means there's more opportunity to enter this market. And we also educate the people in that country. We have the capacity building program, and we provide the program of that countries to educate the engineer in the countries. That also help to create new job in the countries. So work with the government, especially local government, not only just creating that open network, we'd like to provide that, so fill the gap.
So that's the meaning that you take what we have done, invested in the developed countries like Japan, taking that blueprint with the support of local government as well as the US government, Japanese government, take it to the developing countries. Am I get that right? Okay, good. So we have about 30 seconds left. So if anybody has a topic that you wanted to close off before we hand it off, the next one?
Maybe just a quick word, because I mean, we talked a lot about the industry collaboration and different initiatives and challenges, but we should also, I mean, we shouldn't forget also the operational readiness, because it's based on our actually experience of trials and small-scale deployments. That operational readiness is very important in our journey towards Open RAN. The change of mindset, all of this upscaling towards IT, software, cloud, automation tools. And also all of the evolution of internal processes also is very key in this journey. Vendor management will evolve with Open RAN, because we are in a multi-vendor configuration, and all of our internal processes for automation needs also to be evolved. And then this is a journey from operational point of view.
This is a very, very good reminder. We're not in isolation. Open RAN is not isolation. It relies on the rest of the framework and the network to make it happen. Well, can I join me in giving applause to the partners, panelists across the world, giving us this up to date. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you.
Thank you again to our Open RAN experts. So you'll be very glad to know that after the next session, I am inviting all of you to a hot, delicious lunch downstairs on the ground floor, where you'll have the opportunity to meet a number of the speakers that were on stage this morning, to network, and to also take in the likes of the accelerator stage as well. Our last session, before that happens, will highlight OpenWiFi's expansion and impact across various different sectors. So, I know it's been a long morning, but please join me in welcoming our panelists on stage for a closer look at OpenWiFi deployment. Give me more than that, guys. Come on. There we go. We're nearly there.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this section on OpenWiFi. Everything is open, and Wi-Fi is open too. And today, I have the pleasure of talking and discussing with my panelists about deployments, commercial deployments of that. And when you think about Fyuz, we're all about disaggregating the network, but once you disaggregate the network, you have to reaggregate the people and the players in the ecosystem. So we're gonna talk about the reaggregation in a sense here, and each of the panelists is going to talk about a deployment they are working on. And they're all different, and that's the beauty of it, that you use the same underlying technology for different things. So that's the reaggregation part. So with that, we're gonna go and start with some introductions, and then we'll get into the thick of it. And so we have Howard Busick from American Bandwidth, Mark Schaps from Worldview, Rob Sony, which you've heard before, from AT&T, Maido Didio, Nova Labs, Kira McCartney, EPS Global. So with that, let's start with Howard. Tell us about you.
Okay, well, I'm Howard Busick from American Bandwidth. I've been working in the OpenWiFi group for about 4 years since it started off. And I'm actually serving as a co-chair of the project group. And I want to give everybody a context of what OpenWiFi is. We're like any other initiative you've heard about today. It's an open, disaggregated initiative. But the main nuts and bolts of how it works is we work with device OEMs that normally would make a Wi-Fi access point enterprise grade, and we provide them with an open source firmware and software to deploy on those access points. We also create an open source API and SDK for cloud controllers of those enterprise grade networks. And sometimes those are developed by people that deploy networks like Helium Mobile or the Nova Labs folks. And other times we have companies that specialize in developing fully functioning cloud controllers, just like they were a Ruckus or a Cisco, to deploy it for other folks that want to be involved in the OpenWiFi community like Worldview. So more details on that to come. Thank you very much.
Excellent, thank you. Mark.
Yeah, I'm Mark Schaps, Chief Information Officer at Worldview. Worldview is a systems integrator. We service over 7,000 properties in the US, close to 1 million rooms, mostly in the hospitality space. We definitely have expanded to different verticals as in MDU, and that's definitely going to be one of the case studies that I'm going to go through.
Okay, tell us a little bit more about what is your...
Yeah, so the case study that we did is in Dallas, Texas. It's MDU property that's about 6 buildings, it's 270 units, and we deployed OpenWiFi. So we had about a little over 300 access points that we deployed. We also used open LAN switches for the MDF and IDF. That's definitely part of the open source piece. It's not only the access points, but it's also the switch layer as well. And with that, some of the big benefits that we've had is, again, open source being able to be a part of the features designs. If there's some that we are needing in different verticals, we're able to contribute to that either ourselves or with some of the other contributors in the OpenWiFi space. The return on investment is definitely a big part of the selling points that we've seen with the cost of ownership is definitely a lot lower using OpenWiFi, disaggregated APs with different manufacturers. You're definitely able to get a much better price point than you are with some of the big players. And that's definitely been a big driving force with the MDU space and hopefully with the hospitality space as well.
Absolutely. What about you, Rob? And you're talking now with your AT&T hat, right?
I didn't wear
We need to make sure here.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. It looks like we have a very enthusiastic audience. I guess people are very excited about Wi-Fi. it's kind of interesting from the perspective that today, at least what we're seeing is that 80% to 90% of smartphone traffic is actually offloaded via Wi-Fi. So that's an important consideration, especially as you think about where we can deploy and how we can deploy. And while we often treat, as a carrier operator, Wi-Fi as a less than desirable interface, what we're finding actually is that more and more subscribers and users are looking to ensure that we have integrity across the cellular Wi-Fi boundary and expecting the same experience. They don't know actually whether they're connected via 5G or they're connected via Wi-Fi. I'm sure you've had that experience with your family members where they say, what's the Wi-Fi password? And they're connected via cellular, and you're like wondering, why are they asking? But I think the simple thing is, I think there's a lot of opportunity in what we've been able to do, I think thanks to TIP and thanks to this Open Wi-Fi initiative, is to start trialing and looking at the opportunities for disaggregation itself on the Wi-Fi layer. It's a little bit different problem for Wi-Fi than it is for Open RAN. And I think we're going to talk about that a bit more later, but I tend to think of it, at least at the highest level, of, for us, it looks quite similar to the things that we're doing, obviously at a very different scale, with routing and our edge and core routers, and then it's closer to a white box-like solution with a open management plane, which you heard me talk about quite a bit this morning for the RAN. So there's opportunity once you move to an open management plane to start to decouple hardware from software and start to decouple features that are user impacting and network impacting, and make sure that they're provided regardless of what happens for the underlying layer. So as we move from Wi-Fi 6 to 7 or to 8 or whatever comes next, in the end, we're able to provide the migration of those features because the management layer is now common.
Absolutely, and as you say, we shouldn't really be seeing Wi-Fi versus cellular. It's the two of them that give us the experience. And it's really important to get them together at some point, again, as you disaggregate the network at another level, which Mario also going to be talking about that. So Mario, tell us more about you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Mario. I am the General Manager Networks at Nova Labs, which is the company that created the Helium network. Our goal with OpenWiFi was to create a bridge between this disaggregated technology stack with what we call the decentralized infrastructure model, which, put it in different terms, is the idea of the Wi-Fi network, in this case, being owned by the many. That's why often we refer to as a people-powered network. Why did we do that? How we did that was adding a layer on top of OpenWiFi, which is blockchain. And with blockchain, we essentially do two things. One is to provide an interface for transparency and monitoring of the network, where like access metrics, backhaul, fronthaul, quality of experience metrics are actually written and carried over by the blockchain and publicly available, so that you can use the network in a trusted way. And the second one is a real-time data settlement layer, so that data demand and supply can meet, and we create this platform. The end result is that with that, in the US and Mexico, which are the two markets at the moment, we have more than 21,000 hotspots deployed. And we've done several partnerships in the US with the MNOs and MVNOs to use the network, as well as in Mexico. We announced earlier this year with Telefónica a joint initiative to create coverage, to augment coverage. Like you said, Monica, is less of a either or, is more like augmentation of user experience. And I have to say, it's been very cool to watch this technology stack grow, as well as like see what is the impact, the social impact, when you bring connectivity when traditional infrastructure model isn't able to yet. So I think that's the most exciting part.
Yeah, this is one thing about which is really exciting about Wi-Fi, is that it has been morphed in so many ways. It started as a fixed wireless technology, and it keeps growing in different and occupy different parts of connectivity. And in fact, Kira, you're going to talk about that. It's like a completely different deployment you're going to talk about.
Absolutely different
So
vertical.
tell us about that.
Thanks, Monica. Hi, everyone. My name is Kira McCarthy, and I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at EPS Global. EPS Global was set up here in Dublin in 1999. We're a value-added distributor, and we now have 28 global locations. I'm here today to talk about the deployment with ThyssenKrupp Materials Services. So it's one of our flagship open Wi-Fi deployments. ThyssenKrupp, you've probably heard of them, they're one of the world's largest materials distributors. They have a mix of office environments where they have indoor access points, and then they have factory industry halls where they have outdoor access points. And the industry halls themselves cause a bit of a challenge. They throw up challenges because they're full of steel. They have big racks there, and it can disrupt there's a lot of obstacles that will disrupt the Wi-Fi signal. What they do there is they use the Wi-Fi network. It needs to be reliable. They use scan guns to scan the materials. They're connected to a SAP system for the materials tracking. So they were struggling with their network, the reliability of the network. It was an aging Wi-Fi system, multiple generations of access points, some of them 10 to 15 years old, across hundreds of sites. And then their controller connections were unstable. They were, sometimes the APs were connecting to the wrong controllers, throwing up wrong network configurations and the network outages. And it was expensive. The hardware and the licensing costs were expensive. So they started looking at open Wi-Fi as a possible solution to this. And they came to EPS Global. We introduced them to I/O by HFCL's access points and cloud controller. So they actually replaced their whole legacy network with the Open Wi-Fi 6 APs, the cloud controller, and edge core switches, and all of them procured through EPS, and we did all the hardware provisioning for them. So for ThyssenKrupp, the results have been remarkable. So that's from a price point of view, but also network reliability. So the hardware costs are actually 60% less than the legacy hardware, and they've had 70% OPEX savings because of the lower licensing fees. They now have a single cloud-based controller that can manage their new HFCL access points, but their existing edge core APs. So, you know, it's dramatically improved their network management. And they also now have a reliable network, so they have coverage, and it's supporting the critical business operations in the offices, and then in the, you know, the challenging industry halls where they needed a reliable network for the scan guns and the materials tracking. So it was initially a pilot in Germany, but it's now been rolled out to over 30 sites across India, Australia, Spain, Portugal, France, the UK, Switzerland. And next is Hungary, Slovakia, and Bulgaria. And then they hope to roll it out to more of their 280 global locations. So it's a global, I guess, application of this open Wi-Fi where we've seen great success.
Yeah, and I guess that this is really important to be able to, you know, there's a scalability there.
Yes.
And so this is like all works very well. Now I want to just do a step backwards and ask Rob to wear his tip hat for just a second. And so when we think about open Wi-Fi, obviously about Open RAN and other types of openness. But when you think about Open RAN and Open Wi-Fi, they're both access technologies. And we both feel like there is a need to disaggregate, but you say, well, Wi-Fi is already using open, you know, unlicensed spectrum. Why do you need to open it more? But can you tell us a bit about the sort of division behind it that keeps the two together? Why are they both in TEP? And what are the common challenges too that they are addressing?
Yeah, I think it's a good question to ask. I mean, is there a common vision and common direction? And for whether I'm wearing an AT&T cap or even from the perspective of TIP and how it links back to the work that's being done overall in the Open Wi-Fi group, I think what we are seeing is that, you know, the cost of deployment, the operational challenges for single vendor traditional deployment in the way that it's being done today does cause us some challenges, some friction of being able to support the migration from one standard to the next or from one vendor to the next if we need to, because it turns out that there's a lot of movement in the ecosystem itself on the different providers. And while we're quite happy with who we have, we often seem that things change. There's been a lot of consolidation and movement in that industry in general. So we need to some degree, insulate that once we provided what is for us an important access medium to a venue, to an MDU or to a hospitality suite, that we minimize the amount of churn that we have to consume on our side. So building the infrastructure for controllers, for gateways, and in a common way, and then driving the management plane in that direction starts to give us an ability to be far more flexible about the access points themselves, because we think the intelligence will still largely reside there. So even with open APIs, even with a lot of openness overall, what we do find is that finally you are operating each of these networks in a pretty bespoke way. And that's not helpful for us as we try to scale, especially Wi-Fi is generally viewed as something that we're trying to achieve a lower cost per bit on because of what we see with the access points themselves. The irony, of course, is that so much of our traffic is actually flowing over Wi-Fi based interfaces.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, and so that's good to hear that, you know, we're all sort of moving in the same direction, similar challenges, but work in parallel. Okay, now let's try to understand where we are today and what we learned so far. Every time you introduce a new technology, a new solution, there are some benefits, but also challenging things you learn that maybe you were not expecting to learn. And all of you guys have lots of experience in Wi-Fi before Open Wi-Fi. So maybe you can tell us what is that you learned, and you know, what is that maybe you were not expecting, and maybe Mark, you want to start with that?
Yeah, I can start there. I think the disaggregation is definitely the big piece. Being able to use different hardware manufacturers and just putting the open source Open Wi-Fi software on top of it. So I know during COVID there was definitely hardware shortages. Being able to have multiple vendors that you're able to reach out to and have those installed in one property or location is key. Because that's definitely the hard part of the standard Wi-Fi. Either have one of the big names installed, you can't go ahead and just install the other one and have it work seamlessly. So I think that's definitely a big benefit that we're seeing with Open Wi-Fi.
Well, I think that from a technology stack perspective, I mentioned how we integrated some blockchain component on top, and I think it was possible to do that only because the standard was open. So we're able to have the base layer and then add the things like, you know, sign and trusted things and secure vault, things that probably deeper in technology-wise. But I think that what we found as a benefit is that when you have a decentralized ownership, like it happens in the Helium network, the idea of like having this trusted into the network goes through in technology integration of that stack. And so the fact that the stack was open allowed us to implement those features in, and that in turn enabled the possibility of having this trusted, decentralized network, which otherwise wouldn't be trusted in any way if it's just decentralized in that way. So that was the biggest benefit for us of the stack, being open.
Absolutely. Kira, I want to ask you the same question, but also since you mentioned different countries and sort of manufacturing, so how do you see it? Is there any difference in different countries? And what did you learn as, you know, deploy in different countries, and maybe?
There hasn't been too much difference across. I mean, it's what Mark said as well. The benefit of open and the flexibility that Open Wi-Fi offers. I guess with the wide range of choice on the controllers, on the access points, it offers a level of flexibility and no vendor lock-in. So, you know, if you have your preferred access point, if it's in short supply, we can just offer you another one, and it can be added seamlessly to the controller at a much lower CapEx and OpEx. So, you know, that's the flexibility option there, and I guess it covers cost as well, but also availability. So in the case of ThyssenKrupp, we were able to get hardware in their hands very quickly. So they got the new network up and running in 6 weeks, and that was during the chip shortage. So they were obviously delighted with that, and it offered the extra coverage. So I think the bottom line is that it actually allows you to accelerate deployments because the hardware is readily available, and the barriers to entry are lower because the cost is lower. So
yeah,
that's what we found.
What about you? I mean, what about Open Wi-Fi and also maybe the Open LAN part? What is the learning?
Well, I think that one thing we think about this type of initiative is that what's great about Open Wi-Fi and Open LAN switching is that we have a community of developers that are creating the source code and sharing with everybody else. So unlike other initiatives where maybe you're setting the requirements and expectations and everybody implements it the way they think it should work, this is the same source code that's going everywhere. So it's really made the interoperability a key thing. And it's also led to a wide variety of access point models being available. It's like over 70 different AP models are out there, including strand mount and ceiling mount and outdoor and so forth. It's just a more vibrant community than I even expected when we started off.
Yeah, and I'm going to add on to what Howard was saying with the contributors, especially with being a systems integrator ourselves and being a contributor. We are more in line with what the properties are wanting, so we're in the weeds with them, and we know the ins and outs on what works and what doesn't. Usually with some of the bigger manufacturers, they're building for the mass community, but that's not necessarily what the hospitality industry or the MDU industry that we are specifically in wants. So us being able to contribute those specific pieces is definitely a key part of the community.
What about you, Rob? What is that? Because at AT&T, you've been doing so much Wi-Fi from the early days, right? So you tried everything, all sorts of things. So what is that, the major learning and the major difference of open Wi-Fi?
I mean, I just start even just with the basic principle and the basic question we've had and we've been driving for quite a long time, even in enterprise-based deployments. And I think the thing that we've been actively pioneering, but I think is now being unlocked a bit by Open Wi-Fi is Passpoint as an enabling technology. So allowing people to roam on the Wi-Fi, allowing a carrier-driven strategy or even an MVNO-driven strategy to say, okay, when I move from one place to another, I don't have to futz with, okay, what's the password? So, this is something that becomes really valuable, I think, for the end user because honestly, they don't want to know whether they're connected via Wi-Fi or 5G. Of course, as we see, and you heard a little bit about this, about security and the quantum side of it, every day we know that there will be new things that need to be introduced, a new innovation itself to support it. But, finally, I think the combination of having global roaming technology together with an open stratosphere for the APs gives the end user an opportunity to experience the best of all possible Wi-Fi wherever they go.
Absolutely, yes. And okay, so now let's look at the future. And everybody I can think of has a Wi-Fi network already. So why should they move? And what's your advice for them if they want to move to open Wi-Fi? And Kira, maybe we can start with you because you mentioned, at the Thyssen manufacturing plants, their problem was the legacy Wi-Fi. So nobody has a new Wi-Fi, I would imagine, everybody has it already. So what is it? So we know in that case, but is this the major reason to move to open Wi-Fi? What should they, and what's your advice since you've gone through it?
I mean, the major reasons, are the cost benefits, the reliability, the availability, and the flexibility. The advice would be just give it a try. The software is at a level of maturity and stability, and it's so feature-rich now. You have a wide range of the access points and controllers to choose from. And yeah, I keep going back to ThyssenKrupp just because it's so familiar. But they did a network refresh. Right? They replaced all this legacy hardware with the Open Wi-Fi 6 APs, and they're just delighted with the performance and the stability and coverage that they're getting, and it's just enabling day-to-day business. So yeah, the advice would be just give it a try because you won't be disappointed.
Absolutely. Mark, what about you? Are you going to be moving to open Wi-Fi in the other? You already have a lot of.
Yeah, I think so, and definitely in the hospitality industry. I think that's definitely going to be the next big driving force that we're seeing, the cost of ownership, and then also once you have the access points installed, as new technology comes out, you're able to install that at the same time. You're not having to do a full replacement at that time. If there's a new outdoor AP or a new indoor AP that you want to start testing out and slowly bring into the environment, you're able to do that in a much easier and cost-effective way.
Absolutely. Howard, how about you? I mean, and actually another sort of aspect on the future in terms of supply chain, is it how widely available is the choice of vendors if you want to use Open Wi-Fi?
Well, historically, what's nice about it is that companies like Qualcomm and et cetera, they tend to have target numbers of chips they're going to send off to different markets. People from any market can make one of the access points for Open Wi-Fi. So we were particularly not impacted by supply chain issues because different countries that had a plentiful supply of chips were able to develop our APs. So that's been a nice thing in the background. But talking about the future, I think that Mark, really made it clear that we do have a really rich feature set for things like MDU and hospitality and most core enterprise use cases. But we do have many of our community members that, because they manage MDU, they care about residential and they want to also go after single family homes. And so I can see us developing over the next year or so a deeper residential single family home type functionality to the feature stack as well. And I think that's coming pretty soon.
Rob, what's the advice to other operators, your competitors?
So I think that one of the things that I just wanted to pick up on in the last discussion itself, I think there's always this focus on cost and operations, and that's very important to operators, is to try to minimize the total cost of ownership associated with deploying a network and to reduce the cost per bit. But what we also are seeing is that the Wi-Fi ecosystem is healthy, vibrant, and continues to innovate at a rate that perhaps to some degree often exceeds 3GPP in terms of rate of innovation. So we're seeing Wi-Fi 7 emerge, of course, and then with this, there's an often contentious topic in the US about 6 gigahertz of whether so much bandwidth should have been devoted to unlicensed as opposed to licensed. But at the same time, I think there's still challenges with being able to walk back that decision. So if we are going to make 1200 megahertz available to Wi-Fi, we want to make it available and make it available quickly. Honestly, that gives us, we get the opportunity really to do that with an open Wi-Fi based solution because frankly, the silicon will be available and the capability to build APs will happen rapidly. And then to Mark's point earlier, we can do this in a popcorn fashion, a Swiss cheese fashion if we need to, as opposed to trying to, oh my goodness, I have to go and rip out every AP and then roll out all the new APs themselves. So I see there's opportunity there to consume new innovation more rapidly, consume new spectrum, in addition to trying to drive total costs down. But also I think that finally we have to think of and enable the ecosystem to start solving some of the more challenging problems we see about the boundaries between Wi-Fi and cellular. And as we've seen our competitors follow us in the US with respect to convergence of fiber and wireless, we know this is going to be a more important thing overall, that fiber experience is driven by your Wi-Fi experience. And to a degree, even the cellular experience, as I mentioned before, is driven by that Wi-Fi experience. So it needs to get to a point where I'm on a call or I'm talking to somebody or my kids are driving into the driveway and they aren't complaining about, oh, as soon as we pulled in the driveway, as we handed from Wi-Fi to cellular, something broke and having to reconnect or breaking a connection. So somebody was in the middle of ordering something from Amazon and it didn't work because they had a hand down or hand out from Wi-Fi to cellular. So I think there's opportunity with open Wi-Fi to innovate further there too and improve that seamless experience.
Yeah, and I guess, we panic. If we lose connectivity, that there's something, we can't deal with that anymore, right? We're kind of getting a little bit. So what about you, Mario? Because I think that what your model is showing us is the sort of the inherent scalability of all of this, which is really important.
Sorry,
the scalability.
Yeah.
So maybe you can comment on that and, what's next in terms of what you see in terms of next areas.
I think that the scalable part of what we're doing, it's of course essential to do it in a way that is trusted. And I kind of want to actually double down on what Mark and Rob said, because I think there is a TCO disruption. We can talk about that, but it's really about the experience. And I think what we're going to focus on, I think what we're going to see, at least from my perspective, is a lot of focus on those quality of access and access metrics for both front haul and back haul. Because when you do, especially when we look at things like carrier-grade offload, which is with Passpoint, which is one of the things that, of course, we are focused both in the US and Mexico. It's very important for the carrier to decide on when and how to do the switch to avoid those sticky client problems that we've heard. And I think that building up more and more metrics that get carried on in a transparent way. Of course, we use the blockchain for that reason. We might use other things as an industry, but in general, bubbling up those access metrics, qualitative metrics to the carrier that decides when and how to switch will be a pretty big unlock for the scalability. And I think OpenWiFi is actually very well positioned to make that happen.
Absolutely. Our time is almost up, so I want to ask you very quickly to look at the future and what you think is going to be. So if we were to have this panel next year, what kind of new business deployment you think we could have? So very quickly, we just start with Howard.
I'm going to double down on what Rob was saying earlier. I think we're going to see a lot more of OpenWiFi used with Passpoint for indoor coverage solutions. I think it's going to be a growing trend in the industry in general.
Mark?
Yeah, and I think the different verticals, hospitality, MDU is definitely going to be picking or getting more and more involved. And I think everyone here in the audience get involved. I think the more people we have in the community, the faster we can drive this to an even better solution.
Rob?
I think there will be a lot of interesting opportunities for the integrators to jump back and forth between cellular and Wi-Fi and provide the kind of services that are needed to build out venues and build out any place where we need access to give us that kind of seamless experience.
Mario?
Yeah, I think a converged experience, a lot of focus on that, and how to build out tools from both the community side as well as from the operator side in terms of requirements. But convergence, I think, is the future of this.
Kira, last word.
Yeah, all the verticals, I think, we'll be going into Wi-Fi 7, I think residential. Obviously, it's suitable for MDUs, hotels, student accommodation. We're even seeing it used in stadiums and marinas. So yeah, the future is bright. We see a bright future for open Wi-Fi.
Excellent. Major, very positive conclusion. Well, thank you all for sharing your thoughts with us, and thank you all for listening to us. And we can enjoy lunch now.
Wonderful. So thank you again to our wonderful panelists. To my magical audience, we've had such a morning together. We learned, we laughed, we stretched, we talked about Guinness. It's been wonderful. So I would invite all of you now, you can absolutely stand up and begin to make your way downstairs to our hot lunch on the ground floor. In the exhibit hall, that is where lunch will be located, and we'll also have some things happening on the accelerator stage as well. Please do reach out to our speakers. You'll find many of them there today as well. Thank you so much for this morning. My name is Lorraine Curran, and I really enjoyed being with you today.